Hi everyone. I hope that you're going to get this. I'm just going to check because I've been trying to live stream and it's just been a nightmare because my Wi-Fi is so poor. At the moment I'm waiting for it to be changed and I'm really apologize if yeah, here we go. I really apologise if this is a bit blurry or it drops out occasionally because that's kind of what's been happening at the moment, and it makes it very, very, very difficult when you're trying to, well, working from home and trying to do these exciting things with people all over the world. So technology is amazing when it works, but I'm sure you can agree that when it doesn't work, it's a nightmare. So today we're going to talk about grief. We're going to talk about bereavement and loss. And the reason that I wanted to do that is because I've been very fortunate where I live to have been involved in the community group last year, which I took part in as a guest, which was a bereavement course to help me through my own bereavement and loss over the past few years. And I then volunteered to help out on that group course with the community, with the hosts this last spring. So it's something which is really close to my heart and something that I've really felt there's been a massive amount of value in doing, and lots of stuff to contribute with that. So I thought I would bring along a few of those ideas here with you and share that. But before I do that, I'm going to have a little ceremonial moment, if you don't mind. When my best friend died, Pandora, I bought these little beeswax votives, and everybody, there were probably about, I think I bought about 400 of them, and I probably have about 50 left. But on special occasions and when we're remembering her, I will often pick some flowers, which I've done just over there, just there, and I will think of her and light one of these little votives. And I thought, out of respect of all of you today, and for all of you here, and all of the loved ones, and the ones that we're all missing, and the ones that we hold deep in our hearts, I thought I would light a little votive and put it in a little ravenous butterflies votive thing, which my stepmother bought me very kindly. And I thought I would do that before I start because it just felt like the right thing to do. So I'm going to light this in memory of my lovely Pandora, my lovely dog Cosmos, my mum, and my friend who sadly committed suicide, and all the other people, my family and friends who have gone before them, and everything, you know, to do with my life and loss. But also this is for you, this is for your loved ones, this is for you. So I want you to know that this little light, I'm going to keep it shining bright, burning bright all evening. So it's going to be put in this little votive thing, and I hope that it doesn't go out when it goes in there. And I'll pop it over here so that we can see it throughout the session. And there we go, there it is, burning in the corner. And that's for all of us who have loved and lost, and I'm sure there are many of us who have. In fact, as I said in my little intro, you know, the inevitability of life is that we're going to die at some point, and with that sort of vibrant living comes hopefully death in you know, in a very sort of peaceful way. I mean, I know that some of us have had tragedies in our lives, and there have been moments where people absolutely find that it's so dark that they can't find the light of the candle again. But I hope that with this next sort of half an hour or so together, we can come to a place which is a little bit easier and a little bit more peaceful and a little bit less gloomy and dark, because it is very, very difficult to feel that you can actually come out of that place. Death is a very tricky, complex thing, isn't it? Losing somebody that you love. So you automatically assume, don't you, that we're going to lose our elders, we're going to lose our mum and dad, we're going to lose our elderly grandparents and older people. That's the sort of the order of things, isn't it? The sort of natural order of things. It's extremely tragic when people lose children, you know, miscarriages. You can, you know, before you've met the child, and then you can go through, you know, all sorts of tragic deaths, unexpected deaths, unexplained deaths. I mean, losing a child must be the most unbelievably horrific thing. And my heart goes out to those of you who have written on the comments already on some of the posts I've made today saying how that has happened, whether it be through suicide or tragic accident or illness. I'm so, so sorry. And some people say that sorry is not the right word to say, but I'm going to say I'm sorry, because I really can't express. I have no idea what you've gone through, and I really cannot express the deepness and the love that I feel, and that I want to give to you today. And please, remember that all of those little people, big people, old people, young people, they're all going to be burning in that lovely little candle that I've just lit over there, and we're going to be remembered on my mantelpiece with my beautiful flowers for the rest of the evening. So thank you very much for having the courage to join us, if that's one of you, because it is very, very tough, I'm sure. So if we look at loss, we look at it, loss isn't just about bereavement and grief. Loss can be a combination of things, can't it? So through our life, we go through all sorts of ups and downs. Loss can be a loss of health. It can be you lose your wallet or your purse. You could lose your job. You could lose your divorce. But you lose your dreams and what you thought you were going to have in your life. You could lose all sorts of things, lose your dignity and self-respect if you turn to addiction. All sorts of stuff kind of go under the general umbrella of loss. And loss is a very complex thing. And with each sort of life-changing circumstance through the kind of journey of loss, we kind of carry them on our back, and they can become quite burdensome. And then when an actual bereavement happens on top of all of that, some of those things can come up to the surface, and things that you'd sort of forgotten about, boyfriend walking out on you, best friend sort of not wanting to talk to you anymore, or deciding they don't like you anymore, all of that sort of stuff can rise to the surface. So with the death of a loved one, or lots of other things can bubble to the surface, and things can feel very, very overwhelming at times. We can look at sort of attachment and separation as well. So you might even find, with me, for instance, I had somebody who used to help me when I lived, well, basically she was my kind of nanny, my ayah. She lived in my room pretty much when I was growing up, and she was always there for me when I lived abroad in Sri Lanka. And then when I left at the age of 5, we just left, and that was it. I never saw her again. I didn't speak to her again. So that for me, going through the course of my bereavement journey with this community group that I was working with, that all bubbled to the surface. So when my best friend Pandora died just before lockdown, the end of 2019, all the other things which had been happening in my life at that time, I was trying to sell my family home, divorce, things with my children, all sorts of stuff, all of that got dredged up with that trauma of losing my best friend, and everything just it felt like it was almost impossible, and things would never get back to normal again. Well, when we look at bereavement, we don't come back to the same place, do we? We're on it's a different journey to the journey that we were on before we lost that person, or that tragic thing happened before that loss. And I made a little diagram because I think it's really useful, and it really helped me to understand what it's all about. So if you look here, is how do you crack wide? Hang on, what does it say? How do you crack wide open and stay whole? That's my heading of my thing. Well, this is our old river that we're on when we're perfectly happy going along, la 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 la. Then you lose your person that you love, and bosh, you go down the waterfall, and you end up crashing at the bottom of the waterfall and going round and round and backwards and forwards and up and down and up and down. It's very difficult doing this backwards and upside down. And you carry on and you carry on and you carry on, until you get to a point where you've sort of come to terms with your loss a little bit, perhaps, and you get sort of reorganization, and you can begin to start loving again, whether that's loving yourself, loving those around you, just thinking about, looking at life in a more positive light. But you go on a new river. You're not on the old river anymore. You're in a completely different place. So you've gone through all this turmoil, and now you're over here on a different river. And I think that was a really brilliant way of looking at the grief process, because it's a long process. So you have the typical kind of initial impact of the bereavement, and then you go through these, this whole range of different things that happen. And I think when the death has been sudden, from what I've got from the groups that I've been involved with, if it's a sudden death and it's unexpected, it's just awful when you have to start telling people, and it's going to be a big shock to them. So how do you tell people? How do you approach sort of, family members to tell them, and then reliving that every single time you tell somebody. And it's the same way with friends, having to tell them that story again, and then also having to actually, you know, go through it and relive that whole experience in your life all of the time. And I think it's really, really, really difficult, and it's very traumatic, and it can play a huge impact on you, and it takes a long time to actually, from what people were saying, to actually get that, get through that in your head. And get that over to people, and there are lots, and it's just really difficult. And then you meet random people at parties and you think they might know, and they don't, and you have to relive that whole thing, that whole experience all over again, and it's just very traumatic for everybody involved. And how do people respond? I mean, do you want people to talk about it? Do you want people to ask questions? Do you want to actually open up to everybody, every Tom, Dick and Harry about it? Or do you want to keep it very private and try and process it yourself on your own? Everybody has different ways of responding to grief and to bereavement, and there is no rule book, and there's no right and wrong. I mean, obviously, we go through these different stages. There are these kind of different stages of the kind of grieving process. It's a bit like when you get divorced, or certainly with me, there's a sort of guilt. Sometimes you feel guilty because, why wasn't I there? Why did I leave the house? And why did I leave my father on his own? Or why did I not go and pick my son up from school? Why did I let him walk across the road? Or whatever it is, there's a tremendous amount of guilt that people can carry with the whole bereavement journey. And then there's the anger, why did that have to happen to him? Or why did that happen to her? She was so young, or she didn't deserve to get cancer, or she didn't deserve to be in that aeroplane and crash. Whatever it is, whatever traumatic, nasty thing, even if it was a quiet, simple death. I mean, if there is ever such a thing, it's just you can't get your head around it, and you can become very angry. And with that anger can come some frustration and just confusion. And it can be very, very difficult to work your way through. And then after the anger, usual thing, it comes denial. No, she's definitely not dead. No, I think she's just walked in the room. Or the phone goes, is that my mum? Or is that Pandora? Or is that my friend? Or, oh, I thought I saw the dog. Or you wake up and you think that your husband is still lying next to you. Or, they aren't dead. They're going to come back into the room. And then they don't come back. And that goes on for a long time. And I can remember when Pandora died, and it was a relief that she died because she had cancer and she was really ready to go. And I can remember, actually, she said to me, before she sort of became completely unconscious, she said, because she was very scared of dying, even though she was a very spiritual person and she was a yoga teacher, but she said to me, Lisa, if I knew it was going to be this beautiful, I would never have been scared. And that has always stuck with me. And it just makes me think, we don't know about the process of dying, do we? Obviously, because we don't come back from it once we're dead. Well, some people do, but, if they're resuscitated or they've clinically died and they come back. But, I mean, those people actually do say amazing things, don't they, about what they've seen. And sometimes they see lights and loved ones waiting for them and things. But, no, when Pandora said that, it made me feel very sort of peaceful. And I thought, she's at rest. She's ready to go. She's ready. And I couldn't deny her that. So I knew that she was ready, but some people do put grief on hold. They don't. I mean, I didn't put grief on hold with Pandora. I was very, very, very upset when she died. And we had a huge sort of, I called it the after party, because she was very involved in the creative industry and music industry and things. We had a lot of people to my house for amazing sort of after the funeral and everything, and it was fantastic. And I just think that she would have loved it, and she would have been so pleased and proud of everybody that was there. So that's another thing. But then comes the coping with change. How do we cope with change? You lose your husband or your wife, you lose your best friend or your mother or your father or a child or somebody that you really love and care about, a colleague at work, an old dear friend, best friends, whatever, aunts, uncles and things. But how do you cope with the change of them not being around? It's a very difficult one, isn't it? I'd love to know your thoughts on that. How did you cope with the change of not having that loved one around? it's very, very difficult. You think about the first Christmas or the first christening or the first bar mitzvah or the first Passover or the first birthday or whatever it is, anniversary, wedding anniversary, and you think, well, oh, I wish that my best friend was there. I wish my husband was still there. I wish my wife was still there. And I can't even imagine what it must feel like to have lost a child and to go through that. For all of you out there who've lost a child or who've lost a little person, little one, or have gone through that. I mean, I absolutely, my heart goes out to you. I cannot imagine what that Christmas or what that birthday must feel like for you, and I really empathise with you for that. But yeah, life does go on, and somewhere out of all of that sort of upset and grief comes life. Life has to move on, especially if you have other children and you're young. You need to get on with your life. And one of the people at my bereavement course, they had their wedding ring and engagement ring, and of their wife, and they went and made the rings into one big ring, and he then wore that all the time on his opposite hand to his wedding finger. And I thought that was a really lovely gesture, because he said, I'm not married anymore. My wife is no longer with me, but she's in my heart and I love her. But I want to be reminded of her, but she's not my wife because she's not here. And I suppose he probably feels that he has to move forward with his life now. And I think that was a really interesting thing, because I never would have thought. I mean, I got divorced. I didn't lose my husband through bereavement, but I mean, I still felt a massive sense of loss. But I would, I don't wear any rings, and I didn't even think that somebody who had lost their husband or wife would transform the ring onto their other hand. Let's just have a look and see if anybody's got any comments here. Oh, that's so sweet, Marianne. A wonderful gesture. I thought it was me lighting the candle. Meg says that she's lost many people and but never a best friend. And what does she say? This keeps slipping around here. And she says that why does this keep moving around? She says loads and loads of love and strength. Candles mean so much to me, and I love you that you do that too. That's so sweet. Yeah, no, it's nice to light a candle, isn't it, in remembrance of somebody? And I do that quite often. I certainly do it for my dog at least once a week. In fact, I light a candle every night when I go and relax and read or watch television or something, and I find that sort of almost like a ritual, and I think that really helps me. So where have we got to? We've got to putting grief on hold. Some people put grief on hold, they can't face it. And some people sort of have really weird behaviour. They do things that they wouldn't normally do, like turn to drugs or alcohol or food, or they become obsessive about things. They start doing tons and tons of exercise. They don't want to be alone. They're going out loads and loads. They don't want to be, sitting in the house on their own. So they just try and fill their lives up with lots of things. Other people don't do that. They withdraw, they hibernate. They don't want to see people. They don't want to be reminded of that person. They don't want to be going out, to the cinema or to the theatre or movies or whatever it is, or see their friends, because they don't want to have to answer all those questions again and go through the whole thing, the whole process of the bereavement thing again with their friends, or, they just don't want to do that. And I was a bit sort of a hibernator. I think a lot of things happened to me all at once. Selling my family home, moving out of it, being there for 20 years, getting divorced, my mum dying, my dog dying, my best friend dying, my other very, very old school friend from when I was very young hung himself unexpectedly. And suicide, again, is an extremely difficult one to get your head around. I had a couple of people talking about their son committing suicide and things on the feed earlier. And this was a contemporary of mine. He was younger than me. He killed himself, and we grew up as two big families together. And, he left everybody, his children, his ex-wife, his mum, dad, his brother, and the whole of the extended family absolutely devastated when that happened. And I can just remember going to the funeral, and it was just one of the hardest things And he was about 5 years younger than me, and I found that really, really difficult to understand. Why he could have called me? Why did that happen? It was just absolutely tragic. And you can't make sense of things like that. With my logical brain, I try to make sense of everything. I try and understand how things work and why people do things. But you really can't. As I've said, we're all so different, and everybody has their own way of coping and dealing with things. So some people sit and drink a whole bottle of wine. Some people go and have a 10-mile run. Some people paint. I mean, I think painting, reading, writing, fantastic therapy. In fact, I wrote my first book when I was sort of right in the midst of, caring for my mum as she was dying, and moving house and all of those things, and my dog dying. And I've just finished my second book. So that's been a much lighter process because I haven't been, searching for beautiful, inspirational things whilst going through that. Although having said that, doing the books, the Ravenous Butterfly books, has helped me incredibly, looking at inspirational, beautiful art and lovely poetry and words to go with it. It's definitely been a huge source of solace for me and a massive part of my healing process. And obviously doing this as well for me, reaching out to people, trying to help with the community bereavement courses that we've just finished, the second one, and also sharing my thoughts with you. So anyway, so how do we cope with change? Let's move on swiftly. So coping with change can be very, very difficult. Like I said, do you want to cope with it? Do you want to have to do all the housework yourself if you lost your husband, or the whole of, having to do all the odd jobs in the garden and all the rest of it when you're on your own? It's an awful lot of work, and you're going through that bereavement process as well, and then you have to sort out all of their stuff. I mean, my mother had so much stuff to go through, and I had to go through all of it. I mean, like 27 hairbrushes, God knows how many rollers for her hair. I don't know how many kettles. I think I found 5 kettles. One worked, the others were all broken in the other one's boxes, all stored in the garage. Bags and bags of moccasins and boots and shoes all went to the charity shop. Clothes. I mean, so much stuff. And actually, it was very therapeutic to go through it all and get rid of it. I kept very few things, just very, very sentimental things. But that can be very hard for some people. Some people sort of said that they kept a suitcase of their husband's clothes in the back of the wardrobe for 10 years and they never opened the suitcase. They just didn't want to. And one person kept the sweatshirt, and the sweatshirt, she never washed the sweatshirt. And I think he died when he was 28, suddenly leaving 2 toddlers and a wife. Absolutely shocking. And she said, I've still got the sweatshirt, and when I'm feeling like I need a bit of a cuddle, and this is he died a long time ago, almost 20 years ago, and she said, I pull out the sweatshirt and have a little cuddle with it and take it into the bed with me and have a little cuddle up. It's very, very difficult. And so everybody copes with things, coping with change in very, very different ways. And you also, at the same time of coping with change, you've also kind of changed identity. Like, I'm no longer a daughter, I'm no longer my mother's daughter. I'm no longer a wife. I'm no longer Pandora's best friend. I'm no longer any of those things. And people have to cope with the change of that. People have to, you have to kind of get your head around looking at yourself in a very different way. And it's really tricky, because people often, in the groups that I was working with, they often would say, we, talking about their, the husband's talking about his wife, we did this, we do that. We this year, for Christmas, we'll be going to, and then he'll say, oh, no, I mean, I'll be going to see my family in Wales. It's like, it's very hard to really comprehend and digest the massive change that happens with bereavement. It takes a long time to realise that I don't have a mum anymore. I don't have a best friend that can just pop round. I don't have a dog that I can take for a walk anymore. It's not there anymore. It's gone. Excuse me. So then we've got this identity, which we have to sort of come to terms with, this new identity and this new way of living, really, this new way of being. Excuse me. And I would say that it's a very interesting concept. You say you take this glass of water and you put a little ball in it. You don't shrink around that ball. Excuse me, I've got a tickle. Sorry. You don't shrink around that ball. The glass of water expands. You expand as a person because you still have, sorry, the person that you love inside you. They become part of you. So you don't shrink, you actually expand around that person. 1 second. And that's the way I sort of come to terms with it. I think of Pandora and I think she's actually part of me. I think of my mum and I think she's part of me too, because I was made by my mum, so she's definitely part of me. So she's still kind of looking at the world through my eyes, and it's just, yeah, it's a whole different way of thinking and looking, really, and coming to terms with having to change. Once we've got through that concept, the concept of change, new identities, clearing out people's effects and houses and clobber and all the stuff that they've accumulated throughout the whole of their life, we then have the whole process of organising funerals. And I can remember when my mum was really ill and my son said to me, "Mummy, I can't come to Grandma's funeral." And I said, he's 27, almost. And I said to him, "You know what? If you don't come, it's your last chance to actually say goodbye. And it's something that you can never get back again. So I honestly advise you to come, because you will be around all the people that love you, and everybody will be there to support you, and you will be able to say goodbye to Grandma." And, you know, it was the most beautiful thing. All of my children, 3 of my children, my brother's 3 children, they all held up my mum's coffin as they walked into the mortuary chapel where she was cremated. And it was just so lovely, and they told funny stories about her. You know, I did the eulogy, my brother did his eulogy as well, and everybody said something that wanted to say something, and it was just so lovely. And Mum would have loved it, and I think that my son was really, really, really pleased that he did actually come. I think he thought he wouldn't be able to cope with it because he's got all sorts of neurodiverse issues, but he did really, really well. And I'm sure if she'd been looking down on everybody, on her grandchildren in particular, and my brother and myself, she would have been absolutely just delighted. It was wonderful. So there's the funeral, memorials, anniversaries, wedding anniversaries, you know, all of the birthdays, Christmases and things like that. Very, very difficult. My ex-husband's family were Iranian, and when his father died, in fact, we had the funeral very quickly after he died, and my daughter was born the following morning. So that was interesting, standing at the graveside, extremely pregnant. But what's really lovely about their culture is that they all get together once a year and they have a big celebration of his life, whether it's a barbecue or a big lunch or something. And anybody who can afford to or can do it will fly from different countries where they live or travel to London, where my ex-husband's family lived, and all get together and celebrate his life. He was an amazing man, and it's just a lovely gesture. So I think there are things that we can do in navigating through the bereavement kind of course of the bereavement road, which can make us move forward but still hold that person's a special place in your heart. And I think that it's just really important, because somehow you have to kind of find the new normal, don't you? You have to find a new way of living your life. Like I said, you grow around the grief, you grow around it, and you hold that person inside you because they are a massive part of your life, and they will never be forgotten. And I'm talking about people that we love, people that we absolutely love. There have been a lot of times within the 2 groups that I've been involved with where people have had very difficult relationships with the person who's died. I mean, I didn't have an easy relationship with my mother, so there was a lot of sort of me feeling guilty about things, and which I shouldn't have felt guilty about, because there's nothing I can do. I mean, I did my absolute best with my mum. She was a very, very difficult person. Then there was a person whose wife wouldn't let him come in and see her while she was, at the hospice in the last few days of her life, which must have been absolutely agony for him. And I mean, I think he found that he didn't know why, and I think he found it very, very difficult to come to terms with. So there is all that sort of, not there's not just grieving for somebody who you love. There's also other people that come into our lives that we haven't been able to have had such fortunate relationships with, that we can also, are you pleased that person's died because of something awful, that, because they were a horrible person or something? You can feel guilty about those sorts of feelings, and I can understand that. That's totally understandable. But I think, like I said, everybody has their own way of dealing with things, and it's about how you manage your own grief. And then I suppose there comes a time where you do stop. Well, maybe I can't say. I'm just saying, I'm speaking for myself, but I don't think so much as I used to about, my mum going. She's not around so much anymore because it's been almost 2 years. It's 2 years that she was in kind of at her worst, really. And it was very, very tricky and exhausting and awful to see. It was a horrible time. And with Pandora, it's been, 2019, so almost 5 years. And I think about her every day, and I wish that she was here every day. I even said to my son today, I wish Pandy was here, because she'd have loved listening to this, and she would have a few words to say about it. And also, she'd have a nice supper afterwards with me and a glass of wine, and we'd have a good laugh about things as well. So, in fact, I was going through some of my papers, sorting out my drawer, and I came across, she used to put little cards and things in the weirdest places or inside books, and I'd come across them. But I found this tiny little birthday card from her. She always used to love writing. Look at her handwriting. And she says, "Dearest, dearest, most beautiful, luscious, lovely, lovable Lisa, you are the dearest and most extraordinary friend that any girl could wish for. You bring nothing but joy, fun, laughter and happiness to my table of life. I wish for you the most splendid of birthdays. May all your wishes come true forever. Best love always. I love you, Pandy." Oh, that's so sweet. I just happened to find it there, and I just thought, if I might read that out. But let's see. We've got here. Oh, the saddest part was her son was cremated the day he died during the pandemic, and she never got to see him personally to say goodbye, and everything was done online. I'm so sorry. That's just absolutely tragic. I mean, I forgot about the pandemic. I mean, how many people didn't get to see their loved ones? I thought about that with Pandora. If it had happened a few months later, I never would have been able to have gone into the hospice and spend all that time with her and held her hand and had, eat with her. And we had like a whole group of people there pretty much constantly, probably 10, 20 people outside in the sort of restaurant part of the hospice and stuff, all the time, sort of going through the night, and whatever she wanted, we were all there for her. And the same with my mother. I mean, she died after the pandemic, but thank goodness for that. Can't imagine what that must have been like for you. I'm so, so sorry to read that. That's so tragic. Really, really sad. So we have somebody else here says that they lost their son at the age of 46. I'm going to read it from my phone, actually, because I think it's far, far easier for me to do that than to try and do it on here, because it's very difficult and I'm not very good with technology. So let's just see what we've got here. Let's have a look at some of these comments and see if I can actually answer them properly. So we've got, she says, we've got... Hanya is saying that her father's in the last stages of prostate cancer now. I'm so sorry. And she says that the poetry has really helped. And, I'm wishing your father an easy transition. And I'm really, really, thinking of you. My heartfelt thoughts go out to you. Stay strong. Honestly, it's a very difficult time, and I absolutely empathise 100%. So losing your eldest son at 46 years old, celebrate each occasion with his birthday. It's just, and your other sons and grandsons, and get the chance to send them something to celebrate, like a cake. My only consolation is that we shall all see each other again. Oh, So sad, isn't it? It's so sad. I just don't know what. I mean, I can't put into words what I feel. It's so sad. Okay, so it's it is quite a difficult subject, isn't it? And a lot of people do find it very difficult talking about death and sort of coming to terms with it. But I think it's important that we understand that it is part of the journey of life. It is part of the way of things, and one day we will find a new normal. I mean, finding a new normal isn't always easy, but one day we will find a new normal in our lives without that person. But like I said, they will be, we will be wrapped around them. They will be inside us. I think that there are a few lovely comments that I wanted to, quotes actually, that I found in a book, which I wanted to just quickly do with you. I know this is running over time, but I don't really mind. So one of the quotes was that from W.S. Merwin: "Your absence has gone through me like thread through a needle. Everything I do is stitched with its colour." And I think that's a really beautiful way of looking at basically the multicolour that somebody brings into your life, and everything that you do becomes stitched with that. And then I remember watching a TV documentary about David Hockney, and he lost one of his best friends, who's Henry, who used to be the curate, main sort of director or curator of MoMA, not MoMA, was it MoMA or the Guggenheim in New York? And they were dear, dear friends. And I remember David Hockney was at his beach house and he was being filmed, and he was just in sort of almost comatose with grief. And I can just remember him saying that he had a choice. He had to either get out of bed and get on with life, or stop living, because, and he couldn't carry on not living. And the quote that I have here is: "We live in an age where we think death is an option." And he thought at that time, when he was at his lowest, that death was an option. But look at what he's been doing now. What is he, 89 or something? One of the most prolific artists. I mean, imagine if at the age of 33 or whatever he was then, almost sort of 50, 60 years before that, he hadn't been around anymore. What we would have lost, all that wonderful, wonderful work. And C.S. Lewis, who has written so many good things about grief and so many wonderful books about grief, says, "I am aware that I am an embarrassment to all my friends. I think it's because when you're so broken, you feel that who can you turn to, and how much talking can you actually do about something, and people aren't probably going to want to listen to you anymore, and why should they?" Macbeth, from Macbeth, William Shakespeare: "Give sorrow words. The grief that doesn't speak whispers the o'er-fraught heart and bids it break." I mean, yes, I felt like my heart broke, especially when I lost Pandora and my dog. In fact, after I lost Cosmos, I used to wake up in the middle of the night crying. I'd wake up in the morning crying. I'd wake up, I'd think about him in the afternoon and I'd cry. I couldn't stop crying. And he died about the beginning of December, and my mother had died at the end of October that year. I don't think that the crying was for my mum. I think the crying was actually for my dog, and it was for the fact that he wasn't there anymore. And I think those of us who've lost pets, that's a horrendous thing as well, because that's, they are a part of the family, aren't they? And I think that can be really, really tough. Okay, we're going to finish with a couple more quotes. "Each one of us can be a creative survivor." Maybe think of yourself as a creative survivor. I think of myself as a creative survivor. That's by Judy Teitelbaum, from The Courage to Grieve. Anyway, that's about it, really. Very difficult. It's a very difficult subject. Oh, well, I'm going to finish with this from Rabindranath Tagore: "You can't cross the sea merely by standing and staring at the water." Like I said, you can't fix what you don't face. And if you're finding it very, very difficult at the moment to travel through your grief, then please do reach out. Please reach out there are plenty of organisations that can help you. You are not alone. There are gazillions of us who have been through the loss of somebody. So if you've been affected by this talk, by whatever I've been talking about, please do reach out. Reach out to your local communities, reach out to your If you go to church or synagogue or temple or anything like that, reach out to the people there, because I'm sure that there's somebody there that would be able to help. I know that Holy Trinity Brompton in London do something called the bereavement journey, which is incredibly helpful for people. It's non-religious, and that goes out and works through the community. There's the Samaritans here in the UK. There's all sorts of people that you can talk to if you're feeling that everything is becoming too much as you travel through your grief journey. But I just want you to know that I'm here. You can always comment on this thread and I will definitely answer the comments, or message me. But I'm here, and whatever I do, I do for you. And if my site and the work that I do with the art and quotes and poetry and things helps you at all in any way, then please do let me know, because it's always nice to have a bit of encouragement from that point of view. Sometimes this can feel quite solitary, but I think this was an important discussion, and I'm really glad that you joined me. And I'm sorry it's gone on for so long, but I've just wanted to say all those things really, and I hope that it's going to be helpful to you. But as I said, if you do feel that you're sinking rather than your head's not above the water, then please do ask for help. Ask your loved ones, ask your family, ask your friends, ask your doctor, ask anybody within the community, or look online, because there are many places and people that are willing to help. And sometimes you just have to reach out your hand and ask, and there are many people that will help you. It is there, and no one's going to understand your story 100% completely, because it's your story, but people will be able to help you and listen and lend an ear and lend a shoulder. Let me just check and see if there's any more comments here that we can... Hania says she started to write poetry last year, which is great, brilliant, well done, amazing. Okay, I'm going to read the rest of these when I've come offline, because there's an awful lot of comments here that I need to go through and respond to properly. So I'm going to love you and leave you. I'm going to say thank you very much for joining me, and do take care, and do hold your loved ones close. And if you feel that, don't be afraid. I think my advice would be to approach anybody who's recently bereaved, because sometimes they just do need to be listened to and to be heard. And listening is a really brilliant thing, a really great gift that you can give. Listening is really powerful, and I urge you to listen. Especially, like I always say, listen to the spaces in between the talking, because that's often where the emotion is, and that's often how you can sort of judge a person's well-being really, and what stage they're at. But anyway, I'm going to love you and leave you now. Just good night. Thank you so much for joining me, and I'm going to leave that little doing backwards, my little candle there that I lit earlier for all of us who've lost a loved one, all of us who are in the middle of our own bereavement journey at the moment, and all of those of you who are up there, wherever you are, around, inside our hearts, inside our souls, who we've lost and that we love. They're not forgotten. They are still loved very much. And thank you so much for joining me, and have a lovely, peaceful evening. Bye-bye.